They say Hollywood's brightest lights were fueled by heartbreak, not happiness. For all the sparkle of the silver screen, the true stories of its most glamorous actresses are steeped in struggle and survival. What did it really take to keep smiling in a world built to break you? As we peel back the velvet curtain, you'll find that fame has a shadow few dared to discuss. Some secrets, once whispered, can't help but echo long after the applause fades. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor wasn't just Hollywood royalty. She was a survivor in every sense. Beneath the dazzling diamonds, violet eyes, and tabloid headlines, Taylor endured an avalanche of adversity most wouldn't survive once, let alone repeatedly. Born in England just before World War II, she was whisked to Los Angeles to escape the bombings. By age 12, she was a star, but with that fame came suffocating expectations and a studio system that prized her image more than her well-being. Behind closed doors, Elizabeth faced chronic health crises, enduring over 70 hospitalizations and more than 40 surgeries throughout her life. A near-fatal bout with pneumonia in 1961 led to her being read her last rites, not for the first time. Yet Taylor didn't just survive. She made each comeback more dazzling than the last. Her private life was a carousel of heartbreak and scandal. Married 8 times, including twice to Richard Burton, Taylor's personal affairs became public battlegrounds. She endured brutal tabloid scrutiny, the loss of close friends, including Montgomery Clift and Rock Hudson, and accusations that she destroyed marriages. Through it all, she refused to hide or apologize for her choices. Instead, Taylor used her hardships as fuel, becoming one of the first celebrities to speak openly about addiction, entering rehab in the early 1980s, and later becoming a trailblazer in AIDS activism after losing Hudson to the disease. Even as the industry changed around her, Taylor maintained a grip on stardom, winning 2 Academy Awards and never letting illness or scandal define her story. For every collapse or crisis, there was a comeback, proof that glamour could coexist with vulnerability, and that the most beautiful faces sometimes mask the fiercest wills. Elizabeth Taylor didn't just survive Hollywood, she reshaped what it meant to endure. Judy Garland. If there's a single face that represents the cost of fame in Golden Age Hollywood, it's Judy Garland. Born Frances Ethel Gumm, Judy was thrust into the spotlight before she could form her own dreams. The studios marketed her as the girl next door. But behind that wholesome image was a relentless campaign to control her body and spirit. MGM subjected her to punishing work schedules, addictive pep pills to keep her thin and energetic, and constant criticism about her appearance, telling her she was ugly, overweight, and replaceable. She was a cash cow to them, not a child. Despite this, Garland's talent was undeniable. Over the Rainbow became her anthem of longing and resilience, resonating far beyond the yellow brick road. But the forces that made her a star also broke her down. She battled depression, anxiety, and addiction before she was old enough to drive. Multiple suicide attempts, 3 failed marriages, and the never-ending pressure to perform would have crushed most people. But Judy Garland kept coming back. Her comeback concerts in the 1950s and 1960s are legendary, not just for the music, but for the raw, emotional connection she had with her audience. People saw themselves in her pain and perseverance. Garland's life ended tragically at age 47, but not before she redefined what a leading lady could be. She became a symbol for outsiders, for survivors, for anyone told they weren't enough. In a world determined to silence her, Judy sang louder. Her story isn't just about what was taken from her, but what she gave to generations. Proof that even the most fragile souls can leave the deepest marks on history. Marilyn Monroe. No name in Hollywood conjures up more instant glamour or more whispered tragedy than Marilyn Monroe. Born Norma Jean Mortensen, Marilyn's early life was a far cry from the stardom that would make her immortal. Shuffled through a string of foster homes and orphanages, she survived childhood abuse, neglect, and the ache of never belonging. The studio system saw potential in her beauty, but behind the platinum hair and dazzling smile was a woman who constantly had to fight for control over her own destiny. Hollywood wanted her as a fantasy, not a person. Marilyn was typecast as the dumb blonde, despite her intelligence and hunger for meaningful roles. She was exploited by men in power, manipulated by directors, and belittled for wanting more. When Monroe fought for better pay and creative input, studios punished her with suspensions and smear campaigns. Her relationships, whether with Joe DiMaggio, Arthur Miller, or the Kennedy brothers, were publicly dissected, but behind closed doors, she wrestled with addiction, anxiety, and the trauma of her past. Yet Marilyn never stopped trying to take ownership of her image. She formed her own production company, an act of rebellion in a male-dominated industry, and sought out challenging roles in films like Bus Stop and The Misfits. Her death at 36 remains one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. But her legacy isn't just the tragedy. It's the transformation of pain into power. The way Marilyn Monroe became not just a symbol of beauty, but of a woman's struggle to be seen, heard, and valued on her own terms. For millions, she remains proof that the world's brightest stars are often those who survived the deepest darkness. Rita Hworth. Rita Hayworth's ascent to Hollywood stardom was a performance marked by unrelenting struggle behind the scenes. Born Margarita Carmen Cancino to Spanish and Irish show business parents, Hworth was thrust into dancing as a child, often by a father whose ambitions for her blurred the lines between parental love and control. The abuse Hworth suffered at the hands of her own father cast a shadow over her glittering career, a secret pain she carried even as the world swooned for her sultry performances. Hollywood didn't make things easier. Determined to transform her into an all-American star, Columbia Pictures changed her name and subjected her to painful electrolysis to raise her hairline, literally erasing her ethnic features to fit their image of glamour. She became the love goddess of the 1940s, captivating audiences in Gilda. But inside, Hworth struggled with deep insecurity, depression, and the trauma of exploitation. She once confided, "Men fell in love with Gilda, but they woke up with me." Despite her beauty and talent, Rita's personal life was marred by 5 turbulent marriages, including to Orson Welles and Prince Ali Khan, and a constant search for stability that always seemed just out of reach. Later in life, Hworth would face yet another cruel twist: early-onset Alzheimer's disease, diagnosed when the illness was barely understood. For years, her forgetfulness and confusion were misinterpreted by the public as alcoholism or fading fame, adding humiliation to heartbreak. Yet Hworth bore her suffering with dignity, even as the industry that had sculpted her into an icon offered little support in return. Her story is a testament to endurance, proof that even the brightest stars can dance through the darkest storms, and that glamour often hides wounds deeper than any script could reveal. Hedi Lamar. Brilliance behind the beauty. In Hollywood's golden age, Hedi Lamar was billed as the most beautiful woman in the world, a label that belied a life of constant flight from adversity. Born in Austria as Hedwig Kiesler, Lamar's beauty first drew the attention of a controlling, much older husband who worked with fascists in pre-war Europe. Trapped in a gilded cage, Lamar disguised herself as a maid to escape his grip, fleeing Nazi-occupied Austria for Paris, then London, before landing in Hollywood. But Lamar's struggles didn't end with her escape. In America, studios typecast her as the exotic seductress, rarely giving her roles that matched her intellect. Few knew that behind the camera, Hedi was a self-taught inventor who, during World War II, co-patented a technology designed to prevent torpedoes from being jammed, technology that eventually formed the backbone of modern Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Yet, Hollywood dismissed her ideas, and her revolutionary invention went unrecognized for decades, leaving Lamar to watch her contribution ignored and her beauty fade in the public's eyes. Personally, Lamar faced 6 failed marriages, legal battles, financial ruin, and constant judgment for her independent spirit. She was often shamed for her sensual film roles, most notoriously in Ecstasy, and accused of being difficult or unstable when she dared to fight for fair contracts. Yet through all this, Hedi never stopped pushing boundaries, insisting on being more than just a pretty face in a man's world. Her story is now celebrated as a triumph of unacknowledged genius, proof that the world's most glamorous women are often its most underestimated survivors, blazing trails that would only be recognized long after their time. Ingrid Bergman. Ingrid Bergman's path to Hollywood immortality was lined with triumph, scandal, and ultimately, resilience in the face of global condemnation. The Swedish-born actress enchanted the world with her luminous performances in films like Casablanca and Notorious, but it was her private life that would test her resolve. In 1949, at the peak of her fame, Bergman became embroiled in one of the most explosive scandals of her era. She fell in love with Italian director Roberto Rossellini, became pregnant by him while still married, and was denounced on the floor of the U.S. Senate as a powerful influence for evil. The backlash was swift and brutal. Hollywood shunned her, audiences boycotted her films, and she was publicly vilified for defying the era's moral codes. Bergman was exiled from the American film industry for years, forced to reinvent herself in European cinema while raising her children under relentless media scrutiny. Many would have been broken by the ostracism, but Ingrid fought back the only way she knew, by working harder, embracing challenging roles, and letting her artistry speak for itself. Her perseverance paid off. In 1956, Bergman made a triumphant return to Hollywood with Anastasia, earning an Academy Award and finally reclaiming her place among the greats. She continued to act on stage and screen, winning a total of 3 Oscars and earning respect as a consummate artist who refused to be defined by scandal. Bergman's journey from adored ingenue to public outcast and, finally, to revered legend stands as a testament to the power of dignity and self-belief. In a world quick to judge, she showed that redemption is possible, not by apologizing for your passions, but by living them fully. Olivia de Havland. Olivia de Havilland's poised beauty and aristocratic grace made her an emblem of Golden Age Hollywood glamour. But behind the polished facade was a fighter who would take on and topple one of the most powerful studio systems in the world. Born in Tokyo to British parents and raised in California, de Havilland's ascent seemed charmed at first. Her early screen roles opposite Errol Flynn in Swashbucklers like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood cemented her as a star, and her performance as Melanie in Gone with the Wind earned her an Oscar nomination and global fame. But de Havilland's story was never just about success. It was about the price of independence in an era when studios owned their stars. Under contract with Warner Brothers, she was cast in roles that often underused her talents and forced her into submissive parts far beneath her abilities. When she pushed back, Warner Brothers retaliated, suspending her without pay and extending her contract for the time she owed. Most stars of the era simply endured, but Olivia refused to surrender her career or dignity. In 1943, she did the unthinkable. She sued Warner Brothers, risking her future and facing blacklisting and isolation. The resulting legal battle, known as the de Havilland decision, became a turning point in Hollywood history. Olivia won, breaking the studio's power to indefinitely bind actors to oppressive contracts. The cost was immense. She lost work, friends, and nearly her place in Hollywood, but the victory forever changed the rights of actors in America. De Havilland later won 2 Academy Awards and continued to reinvent herself in challenging roles well into the 1960s. Her personal life was also marked by adversity. A famously strained relationship with her sister, Joan Fontaine, the heartbreak of failed marriages, and the challenges of being a single working mother. Through it all, de Havilland remained a symbol of quiet, unwavering strength. A glamorous star whose greatest legacy wasn't just in her performances, but in her defiance. In a world where conformity was survival, Olivia de Havilland proved that true elegance is about having the courage to say no. Joan Crawford. No actress embodied both Hollywood sophistication and survival quite like Joan Crawford. Her glamorous persona, a poised figure with perfectly arched brows and icy allure, was meticulously crafted to conceal the scars of a brutal upbringing and a relentless drive to rise above her circumstances. Born Lucille Fay LeSueur, Crawford's early life was marked by neglect and instability. Her father abandoned the family when she was young, and she spent years working menial jobs to escape poverty. The determination that fueled her journey to stardom was forged in these early hardships, giving Crawford a reputation for toughness and, at times, ruthlessness. Crawford's early days in Hollywood were fraught with indignities. She was shuffled through the ranks of chorus lines and forced to change her name, her look, and even her age. Her drive earned her the nickname "box office poison" during a brief slump. But Crawford clawed her way back with a series of dramatic roles that redefined her career. Winning the Oscar for Mildred Pierce wasn't just a professional triumph. It was personal vindication against the system that once tried to discard her. But adversity wasn't limited to her career. Crawford's personal life was dogged by failed marriages, publicized feuds, most famously with Bette Davis, and the infamous claims of abuse made by her adopted daughter, Christina, in the memoir Mommy Dearest. Whether or not all the allegations were true, they cemented Crawford's image as a woman who survived and sometimes wielded Hollywood's harshest realities. Through every scandal and setback, Joan Crawford remained a towering figure, proving that behind every polished icon lies a story of struggle, survival, and relentless reinvention. Lana Turner. Lana Turner's journey from teenage soda fountain discovery to silver screen siren was shadowed by turmoil that would have overwhelmed many. Raised by a single mother after her father was murdered when Lana was just 9, Turner's early years were steeped in financial instability and fear. At 16, she was famously discovered in a Hollywood drugstore, an origin story that read like a script, but the reality was far grittier. Lana quickly became a studio favorite, her beauty and charisma making her one of MGM's top stars. But the pressures of fame brought as much pain as it did glamour. Turner's personal life became a magnet for scandal, culminating in one of the most notorious incidents in Hollywood history: the killing of her abusive lover, Johnny Stompanato, by her teenage daughter, Cheryl Crane. The press turned Turner's tragedy into front-page fodder, questioning her mothering, her morals, and her place in Hollywood. Despite the scandal and public shaming, Turner never allowed herself to be defined by tragedy. She continued to work, even as she faced ongoing struggles with failed relationships, health problems, and the demands of single motherhood. What set Lana Turner apart was her refusal to let adversity steal her sense of self. She reinvented herself throughout her career, taking on television roles and stage performances as film offers faded. Turner's life was a constant balancing act between public adoration and private heartbreak, but she faced every storm with the kind of poise and resilience that defined a true Hollywood legend. Her story remains a testament to survival and to the hidden strength behind the world's most glamorous facade. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner's allure captivated the world, but her path to stardom was riddled with adversity. Born into rural poverty in North Carolina, Gardner's family struggled to make ends meet after the collapse of their farm during the Great Depression. From the beginning, Ava's life was about survival. Her father died when she was 15, forcing her into adulthood far too soon. When a photograph taken by her brother-in-law landed her a Hollywood screen test, Gardner was thrust into a world as cutthroat as it was glamorous. Her Southern accent and shy nature made her an outsider in the studio system. MGM, eager to capitalize on her beauty, invested heavily in speech lessons and grooming, but often dismissed her intelligence and talent. Gardner faced the relentless demands of fame, constant scrutiny, and a studio that controlled every aspect of her life, from her roles to her public image. She battled loneliness and struggled to be taken seriously, often typecast as the exotic seductress rather than given roles that showcased her range. Gardner's personal life was equally tumultuous. Her marriage to Mickey Rooney ended quickly in heartbreak, followed by passionate but stormy unions with Artie Shaw and Frank Sinatra. Her relationship with Sinatra was particularly controversial, leading to public backlash and even professional blacklisting during the height of the scandal. Gardner also endured a series of miscarriages, longing for a family she never had. Despite these blows, she never lost her independence, eventually leaving Hollywood for Spain, where she found peace away from the constant glare of publicity. Throughout it all, Ava Gardner remained unapologetically herself, bold, outspoken, and determined not to be broken by circumstance or by the studio machine. Her story is a testament to the strength required not just to become a star, but to survive it, and to live life on one's own terms, no matter the cost. Bette Davis. Bette Davis was the very definition of a Hollywood fighter, her piercing eyes and withering gaze becoming symbols of a will that refused to be bent, no matter how strong the opposition. Born in Massachusetts, Davis faced adversity from the start. Her parents' marriage collapsed when she was 10, leaving her mother to raise Bette and her sister alone. Her journey to stardom was marked by repeated rejection and skepticism. Casting directors dismissed her as too plain and difficult. And even her arrival in Hollywood was met with ridicule, as a studio chauffeur famously left her at the train station, not believing anyone so unassuming could be a star. But Davis's drive was relentless. She broke through with powerful performances in films like Of Human Bondage and Dangerous, winning her first Oscar despite industry pushback. Davis became notorious for challenging the studio system, fighting for better roles and creative freedom. Her legal battle with Warner Brothers, unheard of for an actress at the time, set a precedent for women's rights in Hollywood, though it temporarily left her career in limbo. She was labeled box office poison during a downturn, yet reinvented herself with roles that showcased her range and depth, including Jezebel and the iconic All About Eve. Adversity stalked Davis off-screen too. She endured publicized feuds, particularly with Joan Crawford, and battled through 3 failed marriages and family estrangement. Even as she aged, Davis refused to fade away, taking on bold roles that defied stereotypes and ageism. By the end of her life, she had earned 2 Oscars, 10 nominations, and the undying respect of peers and fans alike. Bette Davis proved that glamour in Hollywood was never just about beauty. It was about grit, defiance, and an unbreakable will to create one's own destiny. Jean Tierney. Jean Tierney's ethereal beauty defined an era, but her life off-screen was marked by relentless adversity and personal tragedy. Raised in a privileged but emotionally distant household, Tierney was pushed toward stardom by her parents and quickly rose to fame in the 1940s with roles in Laura and Leave Her to Heaven. But while the world saw her as the embodiment of grace and poise, Tierney privately battled heartbreak that would have crushed anyone less resilient. Her most profound suffering came after the birth of her daughter, Daria, who was born severely disabled due to Tierney's contracting rubella during pregnancy, a disease she later learned she had caught from a fan who broke quarantine to meet her. The guilt and grief from this incident haunted Tierney for the rest of her life, leading to deep depression and repeated hospitalizations. She struggled with bipolar disorder at a time when mental illness was deeply stigmatized and treatments were often brutal. Tierney underwent shock therapy and spent years in and out of institutions, fighting to reclaim her sense of self. Tierney's career suffered as a result, with studios reluctant to hire her due to her health struggles. Yet she never stopped fighting for her place in Hollywood, staging several comebacks and eventually writing a candid memoir that helped destigmatize mental health in the industry. In her later years, she found peace away from the spotlight, marrying happily and advocating for mental health awareness. Jean Tierney's story is a reminder that beneath even the most perfect facade can lie unimaginable pain, and that courage isn't the absence of suffering, but the determination to keep going through it. Susan Hayward. Susan Hayward's rise from the streets of Brooklyn to Oscar-winning stardom is a study in determination through adversity. Born Edith Mariner, she grew up during the Great Depression, surrounded by poverty, instability, and the constant pressure to help support her family. Hayward's striking red hair and fierce ambition set her apart, but when she arrived in Hollywood, she was quickly typecast and overlooked, battling a system that favored glamour over substance. Undeterred, she pressed on, taking any role she could to prove herself, often playing women as tough as she was in real life. Hayward's personal life mirrored her screen roles. She endured 2 painful marriages, one of which left her emotionally shattered and financially strained. Her struggles with alcoholism became public, fueling a media narrative that sought to diminish her achievements. Yet Hayward never allowed these setbacks to break her spirit. She fought back with critically acclaimed performances, culminating in her Oscar-winning turn in I Want to Live, a role that required her to channel every ounce of pain and resilience she had collected along the way. But adversity wasn't finished with her yet. In her later years, Hayward was diagnosed with brain cancer, widely believed to be linked to radioactive fallout from filming The Conqueror near nuclear test sites. Despite her illness, she continued to work, facing her diagnosis with the same courage that had carried her from Brooklyn to the Academy Awards stage. Susan Hayward's legacy isn't just one of talent, but of relentless survival, a testament to a woman who fought her way out of hardship, defied every expectation, and turned personal struggle into unforgettable art. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge's beauty and talent opened doors no black actress had ever walked through before, but the adversity she faced at every turn was staggering. Born in Cleveland, Ohio, to a single mother in a deeply segregated America, Dandridge began performing as a child, touring with her sister in the Dandridge Sisters Act. Despite her early success, Hollywood relegated her to minor, often demeaning roles, if she was cast at all. Her breakthrough came with Carmen Jones, making her the first African-American woman nominated for a Best Actress Oscar. Yet this historic achievement came at a cost. Dandridge was constantly forced to navigate a minefield of racism and exclusion, denied leading roles and equal pay, even after her Oscar nomination. Many studios refused to cast her in anything but stereotypical parts, and she often wasn't allowed to appear in the same hotels and nightclubs where she performed. Her marriages and relationships were marked by betrayal and heartbreak, and she struggled to support a daughter with severe disabilities on her own. The emotional toll was immense. Dandridge faced depression, financial hardship, and substance abuse, exacerbated by a society determined to keep her on the margins. Yet, she never gave up. Her fight against racism and her refusal to accept less than she deserved paved the way for future generations of black actresses, though she did not live to see the industry change. Dorothy Dandridge's life remains a story of both triumph and tragedy. A glamorous trailblazer who shattered barriers while carrying the weight of injustice on her shoulders. Vivian Lee. Vivian Lee's porcelain beauty and commanding screen presence hid a lifetime of intense struggle with mental and physical illness. Born in British India and educated in England, Lee's ascent was meteoric. She stunned audiences as Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind, a role that won her the first of 2 Oscars. Yet, as her fame grew, so did the adversity she faced behind the scenes. Lee battled severe bipolar disorder, an illness poorly understood at the time and often dismissed by those around her as mere temperament. The extreme mood swings and depression would sabotage her personal life and, at times, her ability to work. Her marriage to Laurence Olivier, though initially a Hollywood fairy tale, became strained under the weight of her illness and the demands of their careers. Lee suffered several miscarriages, a grief that added to her emotional burden. Despite her struggles, she continued to take on challenging roles in both film and theater, refusing to let her illness define her legacy. During the filming of A Streetcar Named Desire, Lee's performance was so raw and haunting that it blurred the line between character and reality, a testament to her ability to channel pain into artistry. Physically, Lee's health also faltered. She battled recurring bouts of tuberculosis that often left her weak and in pain. Even as her illness became debilitating, she remained determined to perform, defying both her doctors and the limitations of her own body. Vivian Lee's life was a continuous balancing act between brilliance and suffering, public adulation and private despair. Her legacy is not just her cinematic triumphs, but her relentless courage in the face of unimaginable adversity, reminding us that even those who seem most untouchable are fighting battles the world cannot see. When we talk about glamour in Golden Age Hollywood, it's easy to forget the trials that shaped its brightest icons. Behind every dazzling portrait was a woman fighting storms most of the world never saw, transforming pain, scandal, and heartbreak into legacies that still inspire. These actresses weren't just survivors. They were architects of their own mythologies. In the end, maybe true glamour isn't about the spotlight at all. It's about the courage to shine, even when the world tries to dim your light.